Every year, more than 1,600 people vanish without a trace in the national parks of the United States. This is the official, recognized statistic, but it fails to account for the cases that don't fit the usual patterns. Cases where nothing is left of a person, no tracks, no belongings, not a single clue for investigators. It's as if reality itself blinked for a moment, and the person simply ceased to exist. In the last 2 years, the epicenter of these anomalous events has become one of the wildest and least visited parks in the country, the North Cascades in Washington State. And the official reports won't tell you even half the truth about what is happening there. The story we are investigating today is not about hikers straying from the path, nor is it about attacks by wild animals. This is a story about silence, a frightening, all-consuming silence that follows after a person takes their final step into the depths of pristine nature. The authorities call these tragic accidents, but some former rescuers and rangers we managed to contact call it the Erasure Effect. In 2024, this effect manifested with a new, terrifying force, and it all began with the disappearance of 28-year-old Alex Coleman, an experienced trail runner. He was no novice. He knew these trails better than the streets of his own city. On that October morning, he set out for a standard 20-mile run. His car remained in the parking lot at the Diablo Lake trailhead. Inside were his phone, wallet, and a bottle of water. He took only a light windbreaker and a fitness watch to track his route. It was this watch that became the first anomaly in the case. The search operation was launched within hours. Dozens of volunteers, dogs, helicopters with thermal imagers. They combed every inch of the route and the surrounding areas. The trail Coleman was running on is well defined, bordered on one side by a steep rock slope and on the other by a deep lake. To leave it unnoticed is practically impossible. His watch's signal froze at a single point, about halfway through his run. When rescuers reached those coordinates, they found nothing. No body, no signs of a struggle, no blood. Absolutely nothing. The watch had simply stopped transmitting data, as if it had been turned off. But the most inexplicable discovery was made later, during the analysis of the GPS logs. For the last 500 meters of his route, the tracker showed irrational data. Alex's speed, according to the watch, briefly exceeded 60 miles per hour. Then, just a moment before it disconnected, his altitude changed erratically by hundreds of feet, up and then down. These were physically impossible metrics. The official explanation was equipment malfunction, but then where was Alex Coleman himself? His case might have remained another sad statistic, if not for one circumstance. 3 months prior, in the same area but on a different trail, a 47-year-old geologist named Marcus Thorne went missing. He was studying the park's unique slate formations. Thorne was a professional, a man who was methodical and cautious. He always checked in with his team on a strict schedule, every 3 hours. At 3 p.m., his radio signal did not come through. His colleagues immediately raised the alarm. The search began the same day. His camp was found untouched. Tent, equipment, food supplies. Everything indicated that he had stepped away for a short time to collect samples and planned to return. The last entry in his field journal was made an hour before contact was lost. He described a strange erosion pattern on the rocks, forming designs that looked like concentric spirals. He called them geological artifacts, unlike anything he had seen before. Marcus Thorne never returned. No trace of him was ever found. The only clue was a final, failed attempt to make contact, recorded by the base station. It wasn't speech, but a 3-second burst of white noise. 2 disappearances in 3 months. Both were experienced, prepared individuals, both in the same sector of North Cascades National Park, both without a single piece of physical evidence. The police did not connect the cases. To them, these were 2 separate, unrelated accidents. But for one person, these events formed a single disturbing picture. We managed to anonymously contact a former search and rescue officer who worked in the park for over 20 years. We'll call him David. David participated in the searches for both Coleman and Thorne. He told us what isn't in the official reports. While examining the spot where the trail runner's watch signal was lost, he noticed a faint, scraped symbol on the trunk of an old fir tree. It was the same spiral that the geologist had described in his journal. David photographed it, but his supervisor told him to ignore it, dismissing it as a natural pattern in the bark or an act of vandalism. David didn't listen. He began an unofficial investigation, digging through the park's archives. And he found it. Over the last 10 years, at least 3 other similar disappearances had occurred in the same area, all classified as unsolved. And in 2 of them, the reports briefly mentioned strange markings or scratches found near the last known location of the missing persons. Spirals. Always spirals. They were almost invisible, easily mistaken for a trick of nature. The peak of this sinister puzzle was a story that happened in the spring of 2025. A young couple, amateur photographers, went to the North Cascades to capture the famous Alpine Meadows. They also vanished. Their rental car sat in the parking lot for a week before anyone noticed. A search party found their camera. It was resting on a rock at the edge of a trail leading to a viewpoint. The memory card was inside. And what was found on it made even the most hardened skeptics shudder. The last few photos were taken seconds apart. The first showed a beautiful mountain landscape. The second showed the same landscape, but with a faint, barely perceptible ripple in the air, like a heat haze on a hot day. In the third picture, the image begins to distort. The colors bleed, and a dark spot appears in the center of the frame, like a hole in the fabric of the photograph itself. The fourth and final shot was almost completely black, with chaotic flashes of light at the edges. It was as if the lens had captured the moment. The world in front of it ceased to exist in its familiar form. David told us his theory. He doesn't believe in abductions or serial killers. He believes that, in certain zones of North Cascades National Park, some phenomenon unknown to science periodically activates. A geological or atmospheric anomaly that distorts space and, perhaps, time. The spirals on the rocks and trees, in his opinion, are not man-made symbols, but markers, a byproduct of this phenomenon. Like ripples on water from a thrown stone. He suggests that this phenomenon generates a powerful infrasound field which is not perceived by the human ear, but has a devastating effect on the brain and on matter. Remember the impossible speed and altitude readings from Alex Coleman's watch. Remember the white noise in geologist Marcus Thorne's radio transmission. These were not equipment malfunctions. This was equipment recording a collision with a reality that operates under different physical laws. The culmination of our investigation was an audio file that David sent us a few weeks ago. He had managed to gain access to the evidence from Marcus Thorne's case. Using modern software, he was able to filter that 3-second burst of white noise from his final radio call. What we heard was faint but unmistakable. Beneath the layers of static, a low, rhythmic pulse emerged, a deep, guttural hum that seemed to vibrate at the very edge of perception. We sent this recording to an acoustics expert. His preliminary conclusion, the frequency of this sound, is in the low range of infrasound, around 7 Hz. Such a frequency is capable of causing feelings of sudden fear, panic, and visual and auditory hallucinations in humans. And with sufficient power, it could cause physical destruction at a cellular level. What is this phenomenon? Is it unique to North Cascades National Park? Or do such erasure zones exist in other wild places across the country? The official authorities remain silent. Disappearance cases are closed, and strange clues are dismissed as errors and coincidences. But the facts suggest otherwise. The American wilderness, which we consider a place of recreation and beauty, may hide forces indifferent to our existence. Forces that sometimes, without warning, simply erase a person from the map of reality, leaving behind only an unsettling silence and a faint spiral pattern on a cold stone.